Good afternoon for April 22nd, 2020. This is COVID Crash 44. I'm your host, Rick Richards, and let's get the show started. And away we go. As I said, is April 22nd, 2020. So that's 04/22/2020. 04/22/2020. The evening, and it is COVID Crash 44. So that is CC4404222020. Everybody got that? Good. As long as we're all straight on that, right? We have a lighter-hearted show tonight. A little bit, I know there's some dark subjects out there, but there have been some rays of sunshine, some lights of hope, some humorless interludes. Oh man, I forgot my spoon. Sponsorship update. Athletic Alliance, of course, is the sponsor of this show, and they are available right across North America at GNC or Popeyes. Popeyes now in British Columbia is carrying Athletic Alliance products, as is SVN Canada. And they are going to be live on the website within a day or so. And you will be able to enter a promo code from the show. It'll be Richards25 or something like that. And you'll get a 25% discount for online orders at athleticalliance.net. But I will have details for you on that very soon. Okay, Sandy, if you're listening. All right. So that is the business of the show. Let's get on to some shout outs. I was going to shout out Jixer, but you know what? Jixer won the toilet paper giveaway. You guys remember the toilet paper giveaway? Gave away a big 12-pack of 2-ply, not single-ply, 2-ply toilet paper. And it went to the guy that was commenting, liking, sharing the show. Remember, like and subscribe. Hit the like button, punch the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. Anyways, Jixer was doing all that. So, of course, he won the toilet paper. I delivered it personally myself. And he grabbed it and he ran. He ran right back into his apartment with it, and I haven't heard from him since. So, sorry, Jixer. You enjoy that toilet paper, my friend. That toilet paper was a stab in the back. It was a stab in the back, Jixer. But I got your number now, man. You won't be winning any more toilet paper from me, okay? I got your number now. We're sorry. We're sorry to lose your comments, but hey, life goes on, right? But I will say a shout out to producer Dave and Fluffy Odell, Rick and Rhonda, Dwayne and Charlene, Tammy and Tanya, all of Davidton, Angela, Terry McLean, Jackson, the Glitch Doctor, who made this nice little COVID Chronicles promo or bumper or whatever you would call it. And of course, my assistant, Ivan. Ivan, give it up.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Ivan is pulling stats, facts, and figures if he has access to them, and otherwise they just stay lodged up in his head. Ivan was telling me we're almost at 8 billion people. I said, Ivan, do you know how many people are on the planet? And he goes, yeah, about 7.8 billion. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's almost exactly right. So, I mean, he's keeping those stats and figures in his head, and that is a lot of people. So it puts things in perspective when you do look at the casualty rates, right? Which we are going to do right now. All right. Let's get into the updates. The update portion of the show. I will keep things moving quickly. So, where are we at with the coronavirus cases? 2.6 million, 183,000 people have died. And I mean, that is a pretty significant number, isn't it? But when you consider how many people die on a daily basis anyways, then it kind of goes into perspective a little bit, right? Ivan, do you know how many people die each day in the world?
I think it's a max like 100,000, like that. Like max.
Yeah, you're right. You're right again. Oh, good for you, man. You bang these things out. So the U.S., 845,000 cases. They're probably going to hit 1 million cases in a couple weeks. Nearly 50,000 people have died. That's obviously bad. Still not as bad as the flu season of 2 years ago, in which 80,000, I think it was at 60 or 80,000. I'll have to check that out. It's one of those two. had died. Spain, the deaths, the fatalities daily are staying fairly consistent. They have fallen, though, as with Italy. What we do see a pattern where this starts to fall off. Then you get a little bit of a spike, both in the viruses and the deaths. The fatalities tend to have about a 2-week lag behind the infection rate. UK is still one of the hot spots, I guess you would say, for this. They have 133,000 cases, and the UK really hasn't done anything to slow travel down, which is odd. When you have an island, I mean, an island is one of the places that should be very easy to quarantine, right? Russia, very difficult. Russia, big country. China, big country, long border, lots of access points, many different countries bordering it, right? China, Russia, the US as well, to a degree, fewer countries bordering it, still very long border, right? The UK is an island, though. An island should be fairly easy to block out any outside traffic, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that early on when they should have done that, and they're still not doing it now, which is kind of strange. They're doing social distancing. You know what? It's like having a house. It's like having a house, and you're doing a lockdown in your house. Everybody stay in their bedroom. Oh, but we're going to keep the front door open so people can come and go. I mean, that seems kind of stupid, right? To be honest. Where else? Germany, quite a few cases, way less lethal in Germany, though. And it's really dropped down, the new cases. Sweden has pretty much been a who gives a shit kind of attitude. And you know what? I mean, it's worse a little bit considering the population, but not that much worse. Canada, we're up over 40,000 cases in Canada. Let's get a little more detail on that. British Columbia, 1,700 cases in British Columbia and 87 deaths. To put that in perspective, it's been almost exactly 3 months or 90 days since we had our very first case. So, about 1 case per day. I mean, in the early days, of course, it's going to take quite a while to ramp up, but it hasn't been escalating that quickly recently either. So the epicenter, of course, is Ontario and Quebec, especially the long-term care homes, they call them, or old folks homes. They used to call them in my day, the old folks homes, where you have extremely vulnerable people that are not in the best of condition to begin with. I mean, by the time you're in an old folks home, you're not as vital as you might have been. And they do have a lot of times underlying medical conditions as well that seem to facilitate the spread and the deterioration of people with this disease. So that is a bit of a problem still in Montreal and Toronto, especially, and some of the outlying areas in Ontario and Quebec. The rest of the country, not really so much, right? Not really so much. Nova Scotia's had 12 people die, which is 50% of the people that died in that shooting rampage. So, I mean, that kind of puts that in perspective as well, right? So, I mean, overall, we are seeing some good news, right? Should we say good news? We're starting to see some strange behavior, though. I will say that. Yesterday, as I've mentioned before on this show, I mean, how long have I been in quarantine or a semi-state of lockdown now? I've been in for 6 weeks, 5 weeks now. Now, I do venture out now. I've started doing deliveries. And that puts me into the commercial essential services category. So I am able to venture out, but I still, other than the deliveries, I really don't go out. My social life now consists of going to the grocery store. And I was there last night. So Rick Richards likes salted nuts. I like almonds, right? So I'll pop some of them. I eat steak and I eat almonds and a lot of other stuff that may not be good for me, but hey, man, come on. I'm in good shape, right? Anyways, I was pounding some almonds last night and right before I went into the grocery store. And I'm walking down the aisle. And have you guys ever had this? Like in the past, you wouldn't have thought about it, but now you're like, oh, I have to cough. And I thought, I'm trying to clear my throat because I had one of the nuts in my throat, right? I'm trying to clear my throat so I wouldn't cough. And it wasn't working. It was just getting worse, man. It was scratching my throat. And so finally I'm like, oh no. And I went down aisle 5, I guess it was. And then I went, coughed, right? Still had it a bit in me. And right after I finished coughing, I'm turning a corner and I see people there, you know, looking at me with fear in their eyes, like, oh no, the virus, it's come to get us. It's in the Save On Foods. And I thought, oh, for God's sakes, you can't even cough. And this reminded me of another incident I had a couple days prior to this. So and I swear I don't have the virus, okay? Sometimes I just cough. Sometimes I sneeze too. But I was in my car, right? And I was parked and there was a car beside me and I had my window open because that's how I like to roll. I like the window down. I like to get some vitamin D and some air in, right? Which reminds me, you know, it's kind of strange when you see people driving around with a mask on. Like, is there a purpose to that? Are you worried that you're going to get the virus or are you worried that you're going to transmit the virus? If you're worried that you're going to transmit the virus, does it mean that you want to protect other people getting into the car? That seems like overkill, especially when people are driving around by themselves with a mask on, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I was sitting at a red light, had my window down in my truck. That's the kind of guy I am. I drive a truck. Damn right I do.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare me, huh? It's a V8 too. Ugh. Anyways, I was parked in my truck and there was a car beside me, a very fuel efficient electric car, I think. It's very small. It's one of those car to go things. Anyways, the guy was sitting there and he was beside me and his driver's side window was open too, right? And I sneezed and he could obviously hear the sneeze. And then I sneezed again because sometimes, you know, sneezes come in bunches, right? So the second time I sneeze, he's like, he turns around and he's looking at me. I'm like, well, fuck, man, what do you want me to do? And then I'm like, oh no, I'm going to sneeze again. And I sneezed again a third time. And this was right when the light's turning. And he's like, and I see him rolling up the window and he's driving away. And I thought, how goddamn contagious do you think this is that it's going to jump 15 feet? This is more than 2 meters, right? My sneeze was well social distanced away from him. But I suppose he thought the sneeze was going to penetrate through the window, right? And right into the car like an atom and infect him instantly. And he was angry at me. He was angry, but he was obviously physically smaller than me. So he had to contain his anger. He couldn't shout at me or anything. And boom, he drove off. But I thought, oh man, you know, I mean, I never liked sneezing before or coughing, right? And I don't do it that much, to be honest. You know, when it's kind of gross, right? But when you're on a plane or something like that, sometimes you got to goddamn sneeze, man. I mean, you can do it in there, right? And I had the window open, so I guess I thought it would be okay if I released my sneeze into the air, and no, I guess it wasn't. So anyways, these are some of the adventures that we have to go through, and I suppose this is going to be kind of the modus operandi, the new operating method going forward. We're going to have, I predict that we're going to see the social distancing is going to stay, and to be honest, I kind of like it. You know, I kind of like having that big space between me and other people at the line. So maybe that'll stick around, huh?
Pretty nice.
Yeah, it is pretty nice. And but I also predict that, you know, the coughing and sneezing is going to be, you know, yeah, how dare you? How dare you? You have stolen my health and my vitality with your virus. All right, let's get on to some other happenings around the world, shall we? Around our neck of the woods and around the world. So we all know now, there we go. We all know now that there was a horrible mass murder in Nova Scotia. And I don't know, the details on the motivation of this have been few and far between. And it's just really, I mean, of course, any shooting is tragic. They're all tragic, right? But I mean, this is just really sad. You just see that this asshole, this prick, this son of a bitch, he went in and he targeted families. He dressed up like a police officer. Like what a slime ball this guy was, man. They should just set his corpse on fire and kick it down a hill. They should tie his body to the bumper of a car and drive around town with it. Old school. I know that sounds pretty vicious and disgusting, but fuck him, you know? This guy dresses up like a police officer so people will lower their guard, right? So people will be passive and you know, not on the defensive. They'll lower their guard. That's why he was able to kill so many people. Fuck, this guy really just, you know, I mean, I don't like any mass murder, obviously, right? But when they go to those kind of extreme steps to just kind of pacify people, it's revolting on a whole other level. Anyways, Nova Scotia RCMP now investigating if gunmen had help as the victim death toll rises to 22. Now, I would guess, without even reading this, I'm first going to guess that if he did have any help at all, it was probably from his wife, fiance, or girlfriend, or whoever was living with him. I know he had a girlfriend of some sort. And she may have been a non-willing or kind of a browbeaten participant. But very often, almost immediately after these stories come out, we always hear speculation that there was a second gunman or an assistant, and it's almost never the case. But anyways, let's see what they have to say. RCMP in Nova Scotia say they are now investigating whether others may have assisted the gunman in Canada's deadliest mass shooting. The death toll rose to 22 victims, 23 including him. It is the first suggestion other suspects may have had some role in the devastating rampage. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he was able to kill so many people because he was dressed up as a policeman, right? And I mean, that's a situation you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If a cop's knocking on your door, you pretty much have to answer it, right? If you don't, and it is a cop, you know, you're going to get your door kicked in. The list of victims includes one 17-year-old. The rest were adults, men and women, both people who knew the killer and strangers, apparently chosen at random. Among the dead is a family of 3, the parents of 2 children and RCMP Constable Heidi Stevenson, a 23-year veteran of the force. The RCMP are coming under some criticism now for they only alerted the public to the manhunt through Twitter, and they didn't activate the provincial alert, which goes out to cell phones as a text. I don't know why they didn't do that. Americans that were there actually got the text warning. RCMP have said he was wearing an authentic RCMP uniform and driving a highly sophisticated replica of an RCMP vehicle. So there you go. You can really see why all these people were tricked, lured to their death, right? They have not said, though, why they suspect there may have been a second killer. This kind of just goes on about some of the things that happened, but there is really no detail into why they think there may have been a second killer or an accomplice. Yeah. So again, I mean, they always, I don't know why. You see this with terrorist attacks too, but they almost always pontificate on whether or not there was either a second shooter or an accomplice. And I mean, everybody is, you know, there's always an accomplice of some sort because somebody got him the uniform, right? Somebody sold him whatever he had that helped him do this, whether legally or illegally. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at that, right? But there are other changes coming, other changes which are a little more Orwellian. So Hong Kong is putting electronic wristbands on arriving passengers to enforce coronavirus quarantine. Good idea, right? People travel in, they're going to enforce the quarantine with one of these. A little bracelet that goes on your wrist with a digital chip. Who thinks this is a good idea? Anybody? Hands. Ivan? Yeah. Ivan says yes.
South Korea did it.
Ivan says yes, because you know what? In some respects, it is a good idea. It will help them track people that arrive, right? But we all know the path that this will take, right? First, it will be on people that are self-quarantining, that are traveling from overseas, right? Then it will be on people that have been in contact with somebody that may have shown symptoms. Then it will be mandatory for anybody that wants to have any kind of life, wants to go to work, wants to travel. If you want to travel anywhere, you're going to have one of these. They're going to have to know where you're going, right? And then, I mean, that's the direction this shit always takes, right? So you know what? Sure, it may sound like a good idea. Another idea would just be close the border until it's gone, right? Then you can open it up in stages. Is that okay? Is that okay? Can we exercise some control over our border? Please, can we have some control? I don't know.
What
These
country-
things they go in one direction. What's that?
What country is it for?
Hong Kong is debuting this. Hong Kong, and then they're gonna probably start rolling out in other places. Yeah, Hong Kong's putting. This was way back in March 19th, actually, that they're deciding to put all visitors, and Hong Kong's actually done a good job of controlling the virus. So I don't know. Maybe you could incorporate this with people coming from a certain place. If they're here for 2 weeks, they got to wear the wristband. I would be okay with that. If it's somebody that isn't a citizen of the country. I mean, if I was going to say Japan, say if I was visiting Japan for 2 weeks and they said, hey, fine, you can come to Japan. You got to wear this wristband for 2 weeks while you're here. So we know that you're not fucking around or doing something stupid or I don't know, whatever, right? I'd say, yeah, sure, man. 2 weeks, I'm in Japan. I'll wear this damn thing. That's okay, I think, if you're visiting a country. But when they start pushing it on the citizens, you got to remember, we're not subjects, right? We are people. We're citizens of a country. The government is there to run the state, right? They're not there to lord over us. They're not there to decide which businesses we can run and which businesses we can't run, who can stay open, who should shut down, who can leave their house, who can walk through a park. They're overstepping their boundaries with a lot of that stuff, okay? I don't want to get all libertarian. Believe me, I'm not an anti-state, anti-government type person either. But I mean, there's limits, right? There's limits to how much somebody should interfere in your life. I mean, some of us are married, right? And if you're married, you already have one person that is seriously involved in your life, right? And wants to know what you're doing all the time. Do you really want that plus a government? Anyways, here's something quite shocking, and this will really upset Angela, friend of the show, Angela. Not the friend of the show that Lisa is, but still friend of the show, and cat owner and New York resident. 2 New York cats test positive for coronavirus.
Damn.
They are the first pets in the U.S. So 2 pet cats in New York State have tested positive for the coronavirus. Why is it a damn cat can get a test for this and I can't? Like, I mean, what symptoms was the cat showing? Did the cat have a fever?
The cat sneezed.
Yeah, the cat must have sneezed on somebody, on the wrong person, and that was it, right? Like they're testing cats and I can't get a test. The cat, which had mild respiratory illnesses and are expected to recover, are thought to have contracted the virus from people in their households or neighborhoods. Well, that would be the obvious conclusion, right? And this comes following tigers and lions at the Bronx Zoo, which have also gotten it. We covered that story earlier on. We don't want people to be panicked or to be afraid of pets or to rush to them en masse. I don't really even like this story getting out, to be honest, because a lot of times, we saw in China when they were concerned that animals carried this, they went around killing a bunch of dogs, right? And cats. And it was pretty gruesome if you've seen any of the videos, and it was very unpleasant. And most of these animals didn't have anything anyways. But anyways, cats now have this, and we go to Vice. We go to far left media outlet, Vice, for something that is more of a right-wing position. And that's why I wanted to kind of cross these two things, cross the left and right over on this, to see what Vice recommended as a lockdown exit strategy. And most of you know I am coming up with my own lockdown exit strategy. Many of these things I called it first, right? I was one of the people that said, hey, China is looking very suspicious. Looks like it might be more than just a wet market. I was there first. I was one of the first ones in on the whole government fiasco of just putting people on EI and said, look, do a wage subsidy, guarantee this. That way you can pause the economy. Anyways, I was one of the first to say there should be a very specific exit strategy for ramping things up as well. So let's see what Vice says. As of last Thursday, the UK will be under lockdown for at least another 3 weeks. We get another month, right? Many European neighbors have already started setting out their exit strategies. That just seems smart. France's lockdown, for example, has been extended until the 11th of May, but their president has announced that schools and nurseries will begin to reopen first gradually. That also sounds like a good move. Sorry, Ivan. I know going back to school is probably not high on your list of priorities, but seems like one of the ones that's the most doable, right? as long as they do sports too, right?
Yeah.
If they're going to open schools, let these kids do their sports, okay? If you open schools and you still deny that they can play baseball or football or whatever, then you guys are really a bunch of assholes. But anyways, let's see what the plan is. So, what conditions do we need to meet as a country before we can even think about easing the lockdown?
Oh, think about it.
Well, we can think about it anytime, you idiot. David McCoy says the decision needs to be weighed against the capacity to do case detection, contact tracing, and isolation. So being able to do rapid tests on large portions of the population to identify people who are infectious and trace who they've been in contact with. The second thing I would say is that we need to rebuild our public health teams across the country so that we can respond at the local level in a really effective manner once we've identified people who are infectious in order to quarantine them. Okay, so he's saying stuff and then he's being kind of evasive here as well. Yes, we need to be able to test people. Okay. The capacity to do case detection. Okay, well, what do you define as the capacity? Is it to test 1,000 people a day, 100 people a day, test people in certain areas? Again, is vague. The question, from there, what do you think would be the safest way to relax the lockdown rules? Okay, so this, I guess, would be stage 2 when stage 1 is pretty unclear. It needs to be gradual. Widespread testing would allow us to make the lockdown more targeted and selective rather than applying in a very blunt way to the entire population. Okay, so I'm sure this guy's an expert, right? But I mean, that's where he's wrong. It doesn't need to be widespread. You would need to first test people that are in direct contact with the most vulnerable, right? We know which populations are the most vulnerable. And guess what? It's not 10-year-old kids, all right? So you know who is contacting the people that are healthcare workers or anybody that is in contact with high-risk individuals or elderly people. They should be at the top of the priority lane, and not just healthcare workers, delivery people, stuff like that, right? Grocery store clerks, those sort of things. Because it's very difficult to identify asymptomatic carriers, we also have to continue to with some other measures like limiting the number of mass gatherings and stringent hygiene measures like using face masks in public. Although the evidence on that is still mixed. God, so I mean, the evidence is still mixed on face masks. Like, oh, Jesus Christ. You know, so we've had this just in North America, we've had this virus for 3 months now. And the World Health Organization or whatever governing body or whatever expert still can't decide whether we should have face masks or not. And I've heard both. I've heard them say, oh, yeah, face covering is useless. Then I've heard them say everyone should have one. So how likely do you think that is? Answer, we should be able to increase our testing capacity. Vague, again, vague. We should be able to increase our testing capacity. We should. Okay. Yeah, we all agree you should be able to increase our testing capacity. Does that mean we can increase it by 1 or 2 or 3 or 1,000? Like, I mean, this is nothing. The question is how quickly we can do it. Yeah, that's why we're asking you, the expert. And how much effort is the government putting into making this happen? Yes, again, you're the expert. I think the government is starting to make more of an effort, but I think it could be doing even more. Everybody could be doing more. Everybody could be doing less. Like these guys, they really are bullshit artists, you know? All right, but let's keep going. What are the risks involved with coming out of the lockdown too quickly? Hey, there's a softball question. Let me guess. The answer is going to be we could see a spike in cases again. The worry is that we will once again see a rapid rise in infections, which could overwhelm the NHS, making it difficult to treat people with other conditions and putting frontline health workers at risk. Okay. Well, here's another risk that I don't think anybody's even considered. So right now, a lot of hospitals are empty right now, which in a sense is a good thing, right? They've cleared off their lower priority operations and patients so that they are free to deal with this issue. But all of those people that need cancer screening, testing, heart screening, whatever, surgeries, non-elective surgeries, they've all been postponed, right? At some point, first of all, some of them will be put at risk just by postponing it.
Mhm.
Somebody may not be getting screened for cancer when they should be getting screened for cancer, right?
Yeah, I'm much if I get cancer or coronavirus, I'm much more scared of the coronavirus.
Yeah, I'd rather have the coronavirus than cancer too, right? Second, all of these things are going to come due. Like if they're putting them off now, that means they're going to have to go in at some point over the next few months, I would imagine, right? And so at that stage, then it is going to be jam-packed, the medical facilities, right? Those concerns have to be balanced with the problems that will recur as a result of continued lockdown, which is also having all kinds of health effects. The repercussions of the lockdown are more chronic, less dramatic and visible. But past data has shown that unemployment also results in premature deaths. That's interesting. So there you go. So for people that saying, how hard is it to sit on a couch? Well, I guess it can kill you, right? I mean, unemployment, I suppose, and I'm not an expert, but I suppose unemployment leads to things like alcohol addiction, drug addiction, probably depression, abusing pills or whatever, right? Mental health problems, he says here, domestic violence and alcohol. Yeah, that seems all very obvious to me. It requires weighing up these options requires further research and analysis. Yes. All right. And he goes on to tell us more of nothing. So really, there's nothing specific here. Nothing to see here, folks. So what conclusions can we draw from this? Well, many of the mistakes that were being made early on are still being made right now, right? And what are those mistakes? Those mistakes are a lack of specifics, right? We need specifics. We need clear criteria, right? We need to know, when is a curve flattening? Is it when the case rate stays within 5% over a 2-week period, or is it when it shows a continued drop? Because I mean, they spike up and they spike down, right? We need these metrics and we need them in place quickly, okay? Because things have to start moving pretty soon. I've said time and time before that it is going to be a tsunami of problems coming our way. And the further we go into this, the more ambiguous we are going into this, the worse. And I'll tell you this, I am not a conservative voter. I do not like the Conservative Party. I find them very irritating. But I will say this for them. I will say this. If the Conservatives wanted to play politics, here's what they should do. If the Conservatives wanted to play politics and get elected within the next year or so, they should tell Justin Trudeau to be as safe as possible. They should force him to keep this lockdown in place as long as possible, because doing that will, I guarantee you, crash the economy and topple Trudeau's government. He's a minority government as it is. And 2 months from now, people aren't going to be thinking, well, we're bankrupt and addicted to drugs, but we didn't get that virus. Thank you, Justin. They will be saying, my life is fucked. Fuck you, Justin. That's what they will be saying. I guarantee you. So, I mean, for all the people that say that the Conservatives are heartless and all this stuff for wanting to get things going, no, they're actually working against their own interest. And I mean, they're working for the benefit of the country, which they should be. But if they were to be cynical and just play politics, they would encourage that Liberal government to do everything they could to tank the country and the economy, because guaranteed they would be out of power and the Conservatives would probably be in power. So there you go. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not putting that out there for the Conservatives to embrace that policy. I'm just saying that would be the cynical, power-hungry move if they were to make it. But they're not, right? They're kind of going the opposite direction. So let's at least give them credit for that, okay? Anyways, for April 22nd, 2020, for Ivan and everybody else out there, I am Rick Richards. Let's remember, if we are united together, can't nobody stand against us.